Okay, welcome back. So, in today's lesson, we will just be going over array iterations, right? Array iterations using a for loop. Using a for loop. It's basically what we're going to be doing, right? Array iterations using a for loop. So, in the previous lesson, we basically went over arrays in general. Excuse me. What are they? What do they do? How can we access the different elements within the array, and how can we display all of the elements that are in the array in the console application. So now what I want you guys to, or what I want to show you guys is how to integrate for loops with an array. So I'm just going to be having my for loop right here. I'm just going to be having my for loop right here, right? And then I'm essentially just going to be having my array, right? Okay, so string, right? Names. Uh, let's just change up the names now. Let's make it Jan. Oh no, sorry. It's supposed to be in curly braces. Let's just make it Jan, Bon, Khan, Juan. I don't think these are real names, by the way. Tan, and Olani. Alright, so we always have to put in such a guy there, man, the outlier. Anyway, so these are the elements that we have. Yan, Ban, Khan, Wan, Tan, and Olani. So then in the for loop, we'll just say integer I is equals to 0. I is less than 6. I plus plus, right? So that's what we're going to be doing. And what are we doing, right? We're going to be cout, right? Names I, right? Names I. That's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay. So let's just run this. Okay. So now I just want to explain exactly what just happened, right? So we already went over for loops. You said that we start here, we step here, and then we stop here, right? Okay. Now, here's the interesting bit. Before, when we were just discussing normal for loops, we started at index 1, right? But now, what we're doing is we're starting at index 0, right? I told you guys that when we're dealing with arrays, we start at index 0. We start at position 0. The length of the array still remains the same, but we don't count the elements of the array starting from 1 because position 1 is number 2 in our normal counting. Position 0 is number 1 in our normal human counting methodology. But in computer terms, they start counting at 0. So the position 0 is going to be Yan. Position 1 is going to be Ban. Position 2 is going to be Khan. Position 3 is going to be Wan. Position 4 is going to be Tan. And then position 5 is going to be Olani, right? So that's what we have. And what I just did here by putting I is the index, right? This is called indexing, by the way. This is called indexing, right? To put the curly brace, the square brackets, and then to put the index within those square brackets. That is called indexing, by the way. So, let's just go over exactly what I is, right? So I, when the thingy runs for the first time, when the loop runs for, the first time, I is equals to what? Is equals to 0, right? But when I is equals to 0, I told you guys earlier on that the manual way of doing it is for you to do this, right? For you just to say this is equals to Yan. That's the manual way of doing it. but this 0 represents the yarn, right? So it's exactly the same thing. Now all I'm saying is when the thing loops for the first time, when this for loop loops for the first time, I is equals to 0. But what is 0 within our array? 0 is at this guy, it's at yarn. And so when it loops for the second time again, I is going to be equals to 1. Where is 1? It's at barn. When it loops for the third time, where is Khan? Khan is at the second, is at number 2, is at the second position. When it loops for the fourth time, now it's going to be at, so that's basically what's going to be happening. Those are array iterations using for loop. The old way of doing it, saying see out names at index 0, this is the old fashioned way of doing this. This is the old way of doing this. We don't do that anymore because we create all these different these conditional statements and these different data structures so that they can work in cohesion with one another, so that they can make our lives much more easier. So we've essentially went from having to do it the manual way, which is this, to now having to just write just 2 lines of code. So, really, the essence of programming is to encourage you to be as lazy as possible, to be as efficient as possible, right? Because if you have to say do a project, if you're freelancing or you're working for a company or whatever it is, they don't want you to do it the long way. They want you to find the most efficient way possible to do a particular task, and you need to know how to do things in a simplified manner because that's going to save you a lot of time and energy and effort. So those are just array iterations, simple array iterations using a for loop. But before I go, I just want to mention something, right? I want to go over something, and that is the size of operator. Not operator, but function, right? Size of, right? The size of function. What the hell is the size of function? So, what we've been doing here is that, what we've been doing here is, since we know what's the length of the array, I've just said, okay, well, I is less than 6, right? Okay, fair enough. So I is less than 6. But what happens if you're not too sure about the length of the elements? What happens if you don't want to manually count the elements of the array? If you want to just, I don't know, get the computer to give you the length of the array. How do you do that? How do you get the computer to tell you what the length of the array is? This is what you do. You use the size of operator. So we are going to just declare integer size, right? Integer size. Size is equals to, this is how we do it. You say size of names, right, divided by size of string, right? And then we come here and say, whilst I is less than size, should run this program, right? Should run this program. It does exactly the same thing. In fact, I can actually come here and say cout size, right? Just to get the size of the array. Why not? It's going to be 6, right? So 6. I know that I forgot to, sorry, let's just come here. I forgot to put the new line character there so that I can make it much more visible or much more clearer. But there it is, right? 6, right? We have 6 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not 7. It's not 5 either. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I told you guys that the length of the array remains the same. It is 6. The only thing that's different is that this 1 is not 1, it's 0. It's at index 0, and this is at index 1, this is at index 3. These are basic things that we need to get. We need to master those basic things, because before we even go over, the complex topics, let's just master these guys. Before you even move on to vectors and all that stuff, let's just go over the basic things, right? The basic structures, understanding an array inside out, because an array is actually one of the most widely used form or data structure out there, right? We have multiple data structures. We have hash maps, we have binary trees, right? We have linked lists. There are so many different data structures, and arrays are one of the most popular ones, one of the most popular data structures out there. So we need to master the array. And so now what I've done is I've shown you guys how to get the size of an array that is of the string data type. The same cannot be true though for an array that is of the integer data type. So let's just declare an array that is of the integer data type. Right, let's just say numbers is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so that's it, 10. Then we come here. So, int size of integers. Alright, and then we come here and say size of, oh god, integers. Size of integers is equal to size of, right, numbers. But then this is where these two guys actually sort of differ, right? This is where these two guys actually differ. Numbers at 0. That's where these two guys differs, right? For this guy, for the size of the string data type or array, we say size of names, which is the name of this array, divided by the size of, right, std string. What type of data type is it? It's a string. But when we come here to the size of integers, we say size of numbers, right, which is the name of this array, and then we say size of numbers at index 0, right? So this is how we denote that, listen man, we're looking at an integer array, right? That's how we basically show the computer that we're looking at an integer array. We're trying to get the size of the integer array. And so if I then come here and I see out the size of integers, right? That's how it's going to work. Oh, sorry. 10. Okay, right, that's it. 10. So that's just array iterations in C++, and also the size of operator.